Greenwald, and we're interviewing Mr. Gerald Wells, who served in the United States Army from 1953 to 1955. All right, Mr. Wells, when were you born?
November 11th, 1932.
What was your family like when you were young?
Well, it was my dad, my mother, and I, and my older brother was 10 years older than I was. He was the next in line. Lived on a farm, small. Worked with horses.
What did your parents do?
Pardon me?
What did your parents do?
What did my parents do? My father was a farmer, my mother was a practical nurse.
How did you get to live on a farm?
Well, my father lost his job as a Kent County Road Commission when he was, because of the politics, and so it was during the Depression, and he was born and raised and brought up on a farm, so that's where we went.
Okay, what was your first car?
My first car? A 1939 Plymouth convertible.
How many seats did it have in it?
Well, there was a 2-seat with a rumble seat.
Can you explain what a rumble seat is, please?
Well, it's like you turn the trunk lid around backwards so it opens from the front back, and there was a seat in the trunk, and that was outside of the top. I mean, the top covered the front seat like it does on a regular convertible, and then the back seat was out the back of the top.
What about safety? Were there any seat belts in it?
No. Seat belts didn't come by until the 60s.
Where did you like to hang out as a teenager?
Well, we hung out at Christian's drugstore most of the time.
What'd you do there?
It was a soda fountain. Had ice cream and sandwiches and stuff.
What was your favorite dish from there?
A lemon malt.
How much do you think that costed?
Man, probably 10, 15 cents, quarter maybe.
So, did you have any injuries or sicknesses when you were little?
I had appendix operation when I was in high school, yes.
Okay, what was your first job?
I was a mason's tender for Berry Construction Company.
What does being a mason's tender, include?
Well, it's carrying bricks, building scaffold, mixing mud, mixing cement, gopher.
So, how long did that job last?
Couple of months during the summertime when I was off from school.
Why do you quit?
Go back to school.
How much did you get paid an hour, approximately?
I was probably under $1. I have no idea really.
So you were about 11 years old when World War II started. How did that affect your life?
Quite a bit really. My older brother went into service. He was 19, I guess, 18, 19. He went right in, he joined, and I had several cousins killed in the service of World War II.
What about rationings?
Well, everything was rationed. The gasoline was rationed, tires, and they didn't make any automobiles. They couldn't buy a new automobile, and the groceries, a lot of them were rationed, your meats and your sugar and flour and all that stuff.
So how did that affect your food at home?
Well, not too much really, because we lived on a farm, and we had food to eat all the time. I mean, it was the thing that your staples that you buy that was harder to come by, your sugar and stuff.
So what were some of the things that you just couldn't get anymore?
That you couldn't get?
You couldn't get, or just was a really big rarity?
I think gasoline was really one of the hardest things to get.
So, what does all of your education include?
I'm sorry?
All of your education, what does that include from like high school, college?
I had 4 years of high school and 2 years of college.
Where did you go to college?
Michigan State University.
What was your major?
Agricultural engineering.
So how is it you managed to get into the Army?
Well, I was drafted.
Was there anything before then?
I was in the Navy for a year, 2 years and 25 days prior to that. I joined the Naval Reserves while I was in college, and I got the 2 years while I was in college.
Why didn't you go into the Navy?
I was not medically fit for the Navy. They didn't want me. I applied for active duty and I didn't pass my physical.
So how did you manage to pass your physical into the Army?
Well, I guess they have different doctors or something.
So when did this happen? When did you get drafted?
February 9th, 1953.
What did you do in the Army? Like, where did you go?
Well, I stayed in Georgia for 2 years. I was an instructor in a basic training company.
What was your job there?
Well, I was instructing the troops on different parts of the military code of ethics and stuff. Rifle range, chain training, and rifle range.
Where in Georgia did you serve?
Where in Georgia? Fort Gordon and Fort Stewart. They're both in Georgia. One's in Augusta and one's in Savannah.
What did you do with your free time when you weren't teaching or shooting rifles?
Well, we probably went to town, and movies, and bars, and chased girls, and whatever else we could find to do.
So did you ever have a steady girlfriend?
No,
How much did it cost you to go to a movie?
probably 50 cents.
What was the food like in your camp?
Typical institutional Army chow. We had food, and you ate, and complained about all the time you was in because it was good food, but the cooks ruined it most of the time.
So it wasn't really anything like the food you had back on the farm.
No, it sure isn't.
What was something that was served all the time there?
Well, they called it SOS, which is same old stuff. It chipped beef gravy on toast.
How did it taste?
Well, enough salt and pepper, it was edible.
So when you're teaching guys how to use a rifle, are you a good shot?
Well, I was expert in the service, yes.
Did you have fun shooting them?
Yes.
In the Korean War, it was the beginning of integrating black and white troops. Were there any racial disputes where you taught?
It was just starting when I was in those first integrated services. It was just doing it at the present time. And then it worked pretty smooth at our training companies. We didn't have that much of a deal there. I seen a lot of it when I was in service because I was stationed in Georgia and it was still real prevalent there yet, racism.
Were there any, like, black males that were in higher up positions in the Army?
Not really at that time.
Why?
Not in our outfit. See, we were all primarily white to start with, and it's just, I was in the military police and that was pretty much all white.
What about the black parts of town?
We just weren't allowed to go there. I mean, when I was in the military police, we had special black patrols that patrolled the black part of town, and we patrolled the white part, and you just didn't go in the black section of town. It was off limits.
So were there ever any, like, Back to the classroom. Were there ever misfires and things with rifles?
Well, yes, it happens, but it's all real controlled.
So no one got sent to a hospital or anything?
No, you don't have accidents. We didn't allow those.
What kind of guys ended up in your class?
I'm sorry?
What kind of guys ended up in your class?
Well, it was same as your high school senior here today, probably. Some kids 18, 20 years old and fresh out of school.
Did you ever feel sorry knowing they'd be going off to war?
Well, in a way, yes, because you tried to teach them how to use their weapons and stuff to the best of their ability to protect themselves and their buddies, you know.
What was the general relationship between you and the troops?
Probably like teacher-student in high school. They were there to learn and we were there to teach them.
About how many hours a day would you spend teaching?
Oh, probably 6.
How many classes a day did you have?
Oh, maybe 3 or 4.
Do you recall what you did when your service ended?
I'm sorry?
Do you recall what you did when the service ended?
What I did when the service ended? Well, I had leave time and they give you your back pay and everything, and so I went, stopped in New York, seen my brother, and spent a few days with them and then came on home.
What was your brother doing in New York?
He owned a paper box company in New York.
What'd you do when you got home?
Went back to work at Beatrice Foods Company.
What was your job there?
Well, started out as a cleanup man and cleaned up, and then I studied and trained to be a swing man. I took whoever was sick or vacation or whatever, I took their jobs.
Did that ever get exhausting?
I'm sorry?
Did that ever get exhausting?
Well, sometimes you get out of work and somebody call in sick, you have to go back to work. I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
How much did you make there?
I would say maybe $1 an hour.
Were you married then?
No, I met a gal at work and we got married, yes, while we were working at Beatrice Foods, yeah.
How much money a year did you make?
Well, the two of us together made less than $4,000. We made $3,600, I think, 1 year on our income tax was our total income for the year.
So, what kind of car would you have had on that kind of allowance?
Well, when I got out of the service, I had a little money in my pocket and I bought a brand new Plymouth convertible for $2,600.
How'd you manage to pay that off?
A little at a time.
So, you adjusted to civilian life pretty easily?
I'm sorry?
You adjusted to civilian life pretty easily?
Oh, yeah.
What'd you do for free time after the war?
What did I do what?
For free time.
What did I do for free time after the war? Probably the same thing I'd done while I was in service.
What about your family now?
Well, I have 5 daughters, and they're all over the United States. I got 2 in Texas, 1 in Nebraska, and 1 in Allegan, and 1 in Mason.
What about granddaughters?
I got 5 granddaughters.
How old are they?
My youngest granddaughters are sophomores in college.
So, you met your wife at work. When did you guys get married?
November 10th, 1955, I think.
Well, your birthday's November 11th. Is there any reason you got married a day before your birthday?
Don't forget your anniversary that way.
When did you get divorced?
In 1988.
So, how would you say the time in the service affected your life?
I think every young man or woman ought to go in service for 2 years. I think it does them good.
How so?
Well, it teaches you to be your own individual person and gets you away from mother doing all your, picking up your socks and stuff for you all the time, and fixing your meals and stuff. You gotta learn to do a lot of that stuff on your own.
What happens if you don't do that kind of stuff in the Army?
You just don't it. Don't do it. I mean, you do it.
What's the motivation to always do it in the Army?
Well, they have what they call passes, which you have to get in order to be able to go to town and stuff, and you just don't get passes and stuff, so you're stuck doing whatever you didn't do. And they stand there and they watch you and make you do it.
So, if you could do everything all over again, would you do anything differently?
Well, probably the only thing I probably wouldn't get divorced again if that was a communication problem. And I would work on seeing if that didn't happen again. Everything else I wouldn't change. It was a good life.
You still talk to your ex-wife?
Oh yeah, we get along fine.
What do you think about the war now?
Pardon me?
What do you think about the war in Iraq now?
I think it's a mess.
Would you want to be in the Army now?
Pardon me?
Would you want to be in the Army now?
I wouldn't mind being in the service today, no. I wouldn't necessarily, well, I'm too old and too crippled to do anything anymore, but I mean, if I was a young man, I wouldn't mind being in the service. I think with the complete voluntary service, we have the best trained, best equipped service in the world. I mean, because guys that want to be in the service are in the service. It isn't, when I was in there, we had a bunch of draftees and they just didn't want anything to do with the Army, you know what I mean?
Do you think that affects the performance of the Army?
I think it does, yes. Mainly because you know you're just there for 2 years, and when that's up, you're out, you know? I mean, you don't have to really perform or do anything. One thing about the military, there's always somebody over you and somebody under you. So all you do is pass the information on to the next person, you know? I mean, you get orders from up on top, and he comes to you, and then you give them to somebody lower than you, so. It's kind of the way that it works in the service.
The following oral military history project is a series of documentaries in association with the Lowell area men and women who proudly served and sacrificed part of their lives to preserve the opportunities for all of us to build our businesses and raise our families under a blanket of freedom. For reservations and more information, contact the Lowell Area Historical Museum at 616-897-7688.